Well, here we are, the finale, the season finale of the second season of the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast. And today I want to talk to you about the year in review. I want to take a look at what we've talked about here on this podcast, what we might have taken from this podcast. I want to share with you my year in review, at least a big part of it. All right, I'm not going to share every single thing, but I have a lot to share with you. And I want to talk to you about maybe the most important thing that you can do right now. Most important thing you could be doing right now as you are gearing up for 2024. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. If you are new here, my name is Justin, and welcome to the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast. If you're not new here, welcome back. That's right. This is the podcast where we use the philosophy of yoga in a practical and everyday way, one small step at a time, to become happier people and people driven by purpose. You know, yoga philosophy is really kind of rooted in roots, right? It's very rooted down into some very simple philosophies. And most of us, you know, we don't have to say we practice yoga every single day, but we have what we call maybe a set of values or a set of ethics or whatever you would want to call it. But I really love to use the practice of yoga, what I learn on my mat, what I learn from studying and from teaching, to bring you this podcast. But I also like to bring it to you in a practical and everyday way, because we're living in an everyday, world and an everyday life that is much different than when the yoga, the traditional, writings and the traditional scripts and the traditional all the different things that were written about yoga have been written centuries ago. And here we are now living in a different world. And I love to bring that to you no matter what you feel like you're practicing in your everyday life. And so another year has ended, and as the holiday season is upon us, and we're going to be gearing up for the close of the holiday season and the close of the entire year, we're going to reach a point of life where I call this like the dead zone. We're going to get like January, February, even into March a little bit. It's kind of like a dead zone. The first 2 or 3 months, everybody's kind of recuperating from holiday time. There's been a lot going on. It's busy. And then we kind of get into this first part of the year where a lot of hibernation, we think about. We aren't out as much. We're not as active as we normally are. It's cooler in most parts of where we live in wintertime. But before we know it, everybody, spring is going to be here. It's going to be here in the blink of an eye. And so I want to talk about how it feels in this time of year, this end of the year time. And I want to share that key thing with you that you need to be doing right now for 2024 as you enter this kind of dead zone part of the year where you may just be thinking about, not a lot of things to do or not a lot of plans or looking forward to things that are, into spring or summertime, but there's really not a lot at the beginning. So I really want to get into this in this episode. And I would like to start by talking about my year in review. As I'm going through my year in review with you, I would really invite you to take a look back at your year and notice one step at a time all the things that you have done, all the influences that you have made in your own life and in other people's lives, those positive influences. And maybe also think about things that you might be letting go of that maybe didn't work, or maybe you found that were not working and you had to make a change and now you're in a different position than you were before. So not only the things that maybe you gained and you were able to shine your love, through your purpose out, but also what are the things that you've actually let go of? What are the things that you've really, really let go of? Most often, we all as human beings suffer some kind of loss. Some of it is out of our control. Some of it is in our control. And I believe that sometimes the things that are in our control and we lose them or we have to leave them can be harder than when it's out of our control, because we know it's out of our control. But when it's in our control, we know we're making decisions that are going to be best for the future that don't feel great right now. And that's hard. So if you've done any of those things, I am right here with you. I have done the same things this past year, and I empathize with that because it is not easy. So let's start with kind of what I had hoped to accomplish in 2023, which is this year. And the biggest thing that I wanted to accomplish in 2023 was traveling more. And in 2022, I had a very, very big transition year. I walked away from 2 specific jobs that were no longer serving me at all. And when I look back at that transition in 2022, and even talking about that right now here with you, I still get kind of a pit, like a gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach, because that was probably one of the hardest years I endured was 2022. And while I started this podcast, mid to late kind of 2022, I also started 2 new jobs. I cannot believe what determination and driving in the lane of purpose forward can really, really do for a person. This is coming from somebody who, in my past, I say 2022 was a hard year, but I've had hard years even before that. Years where I didn't know where I was going to have my next meal from, where I was going to be living. I mean, these were hard things. And so I don't mean to minimalize anything, but I'm also saying that some years can be harder transition years than others. 2022 was a big transition year. And so one of the biggest things I wanted to do in 2023 was travel more. And so the things that I was doing at the end of 2022 to start new jobs and leave old things behind and all of that had to happen in order for me to be able to travel more in 2023, which I have been able to do. And that's still on my radar. As most of you know who may have listened to or watched this last episode that came a couple weeks ago about my favorite things, traveling is right up there. And so I had to do whatever it took, even a few years ago, to be sure I was moving in the direction of being more happy, more purpose-driven, more anchored, more dynamic, and really, too, living a peaceful life. So that meant as 2022 came to a close and we started into 2023, this current year that we're in now, I had to do a lot of things. And so let's start with the year in review. I wanted to travel more, as I mentioned. I wanted to immerse myself in my favorite things, like going back into my theme parks again. I haven't been doing that for years. I wanted to get back riding my coasters, enjoying the wonderful ambiance of a theme park life and exploring places I've never gone. And going to theme parks that I haven't been to in 10 or more years that are almost different than what I ever remembered. And things feel differently when you experience them, now versus 10 years ago or 5 years ago or something. So I wanted that to be a big thing. I wanted to get a better handle on money in 2023. Another thing I wanted to do in 2023 was I wanted to change how I kept my spaces, my physical spaces, my car, my house, right? The rooms in my house. This room underwent a lot of changes. My bedroom underwent a lot of changes, right? Living rooms changed. Basement changed. A lot of stuff changed. And I had to get rid of a lot of things in those spaces and change a lot of things in those spaces so that I could move into the next chapter. It wouldn't have worked if I would have kept it the same. I wanted to build consistency in my yoga practice and be sure that I was really on my mat 5 days a week, 5 days out of 7. To be physically practicing yoga. There were times where I couldn't do that because there was physical things going on. But for the majority of the time, that was one of my biggest things in 2023. If I look back, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build and enhance my teaching of yoga. I've been teaching yoga for a number of years now, half of a decade, 5 years or so. And so I thought it was the time to enroll in a 300-hour teacher training program, which those of you that don't know what that means. For most yoga teachers, if you go to a yoga class in person, most yoga teachers, in fact, mostly all yoga teachers have gone through a 200-hour course. Most yoga studios or places that employ you or subcontract you to teach require you to have at least that fundamental 200-hour training. But I did have some additional trainings that I went through and retreat that I've been on to further education, but I really wanted to get the really big 300, the next level, the next step. And so that was a big thing I wanted to do, and I did that. I started it. I'm not done, not nearly done, but I did start that. I wanted to change also how I interact with people, right? I wanted to eliminate fighting and getting into arguments or having pissing matches with people because that doesn't serve me at all. I wanted to eliminate drama and people that created a lot of drama. I wanted to have no gaslighting other people, not letting other people gaslight me, and no manipulation, right? If you've been listening to me for a little while, you know I am a survivor of a lot of narcissistic abuse in my life. Many people, including my very own parents, and relationships I've had, and so on and so forth. Jobs, bosses, friends, colleagues, just hit with narcissistic abuse all the time. And now that I feel like I can kind of pinpoint and see those traits in folks right away, I don't have to worry about that because I know I have the tools and resources to kind of prevent myself from getting hurt in that manner again. And so I wanted to make sure I changed how I either let people into my life or who had to go from my life or who was being introduced, those types of things. It was important also in that same vein to raise my self-worth up a little bit and my self-awareness, knowing a lot of who I truly am. That might have meant no dating for a long period of time, so I could really get into who I really am, spending more time alone to discover who I truly am. And I also wanted to stop drinking alcohol for a certain period of time, which I also did. And I wanted to see how that impacted my life. And I have made videos on that. I've made shorts on that. And by the time you're going to be watching this video, which again is at the end of December, I will have stopped my alcohol freeze, and I'm allowing it to be in my life until the end of the year, and I will stop again at the beginning. So that's kind of where I'm going for 2024. But overall, that was a huge thing reflecting back. I've never done that in my entire life. I have probably had alcohol from the age of, I don't know when I even had my first drink. Well, I don't know if it was 15 years old, 14 years old, somewhere 16 years old, like there. So for that many years, and I'm going to be 41 years old, I've never gone this long without having alcohol. So here we are. And I also wanted to learn more about podcasting, more about doing things on YouTube, more about kind of, doing the things that are involved in content creating or how you edit podcasts and do streamings and, creating ads on social media and all of that, working step by step. I really wanted to do a lot of that more in this business of, content creating and helping other people. And I had to use my own, ups and downs and knowledge to do all of that. And finally, I wanted to, as for those of you that know, I wanted to rescue a new little kitty to have in the home. So that Cody, my older cat, and I would have a new friend in our home. Hence, sweet little Dylan has come into our lives. He's really big now. If you've seen him on any yoga videos lately, you've seen he's gotten much bigger. He's such a sweet boy. A real sweet guy. Not saying he's a good boy all the time, but he's a sweet one. But anyway, that was another big thing for 2023. So there's a lot more. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with everything, but there is a lot more. And there are some things I've really put, the things that I mentioned to you are the things that I really wanted to put a lot of attention on. Now, before we go any further in this, I want to look back at the episodes that aired in season 2 of this podcast. There were a lot in season 1, and as you know, in season 1, I kind of lumped everything together. We were doing episodes once a week, twice a week, that kind of thing. And when I discovered that there was going to be a different purpose for how I wanted to move forward in a season-based format, which is what we're doing now, 10 episodes at a time, when we call that a season. I wanted to change all of that because the first season had way too much content. There was a lot of repetitiveness. So that's stuff that I've learned and stuff that I've learned from. And so I wanted to have really great content that I'm extremely passionate about that has helped me change my life in a lot of those things I just described to you about looking back in 2023. Because my intention, of course, is using my life to help you in your life. So this season, we talked about people pleasing. We talked about our relationship to money. We talked about drama, addictions and purpose. We talked about the chakra and self-development with the wonderful Tavi Rose. And don't worry, she's going to be back next season. We're already talking about what we're going to be talking about next season. She might be on more than once because every time she's on, I get tons of feedback on how wonderful she is. And so we'll have her back on. We talk a lot about, we had an episode about habits and routines, which are very important. We did job interviewing, and we also talked about coworkers and the relationship that you have with your coworkers. And then the last episode was about my favorite things and how happy they make me currently, but also how they impact me long term, which is very important. So all of those episodes, if you notice, coincide with when I look back at my year in review in 2023, because the things that I wanted to accomplish all were hand in hand with me teaching those things out to you. Because as I say often on this podcast, this is not just about me just like giving out information. We are walking on a journey together, and I really want to be there with you as your friend, walking along with you in purpose to help you figure out little ways in your life to become a happier person. And as I say often too on here, that doesn't mean that you're going to be happy all the time. In fact, that's nearly impossible to be happy all the time. If you were happy all the time, you wouldn't know what happiness really was, would you? So we're not going to be happy all the time. Life doesn't work that way, but you can be happier than you were before. Getting one day better than the next, then the next, then the next, taking one step at a time, certainly very important, especially when you're walking in your purpose of happiness, which I believe is very important. So here we are now. So what I want to invite you to do as we gear up to conclude 2023 is to take a look at all of the things that you wanted to do in 2023. What are the things you wanted to do in your life? What changes did you want to make? What did you want to add or subtract from your life? Who did you want to become in 2023? Now, some of you may be looking back at what you did and you might say to yourself, you know what? I honestly just wanted to make it through the day. I have so much shit going on in my life. I can't even keep my head on straight. I'm in tons of debt. I have bills. So-and-so's been sick, or I've been sick, and my schedule has changed. I've lost my job. I've changed my job. I got demoted. I got this pay decrease. This happened, that happened. There's all these shifts and changes. I moved. We had to change houses. Okay. All of that stuff is going to happen, and it's never going to stop happening. In fact, I endured a lot of that stuff also in 2023. So my whole 2023 wasn't sunshine and roses, right? There were a lot of problems, a lot of obstacles, a lot of physical things that went on, a lot of emotional things that went on in my life, just like in yours. And so it's important to understand that I experienced all of this too, and you're going to continue to experience struggling in your life. It's part of the human experience. So if you look back and you're like, God, I don't feel like I fucking did anything in 2023, you might be thinking too hard, because here's the deal. It's time for me to give you this key thing that you need to be doing now in order to move into 2024 and feel a sense of accomplishment now. So if you're looking back on your life and or over the past year and you're like, I didn't do anything. I just I'm in a worse position than I was before, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. When you have times like that everybody has, it's time to tap into that key thing that you need to be doing. And that is this. You start planting the seeds and taking the first step to change something now. When you do that, when you take one step, not 50,000 steps, one, you suddenly can look back on that and go, yep, I had an accomplishment. Because one small step is an accomplishment. Just like in the morning, if you get up and you put I teach about trying to make your bed in the morning because it's a really big form of accomplishment. If you even just throw the comforter over the bed and you've even started there, you've accomplished something in 2023. So if you feel like everything is negative, I want you to think again, because the things that you do, those small things, and you also don't know whose life you've touched or whose lives you've touched, even when you're struggling. So it's important to back up and go, you know what? there were a few things that I did, and it's okay that I didn't meet all of the goals I had or finish everything. And we're going to talk about that more in just a moment, because here's the thing. The list that I rolled off to you a minute ago about all the things that I wanted to do in 2023 and all the things I kind of started to put into motion in my life, it didn't happen for me on January 2nd, 2023 of this year. I didn't say on January 1st. I didn't make a New Year's resolution, which we're going to talk about in a second about how I can't stand New Year's resolutions. But I didn't just like say, okay, I want all these things, and then boom, the next day they happened. Okay. Things just don't fall into place like that. That's just not how it's going to work. None of this happened like that. None of that's going to happen in your life like that either. Each and every one of those things that I shared with you took a ton of work. And that doesn't mean it just took work in 2023. I even mentioned 2022 before. And you could even back up even farther than that when they were just little mere seedlings in my mind that I just had to hurry up and get out and plant or take the next step or take just one small step forward to something, who cares what the outcome's going to be? It's just a small step forward. So it takes a lot of work. And what do I mean by work? Well, work is the kicker here, planting the seeds, taking the plunge, kind of dipping your toe in, and then you get in a little farther, and then you get in a little farther, and suddenly you're swimming, and there you are. Let's take Dylan as the example, our sweet little Dylan, my cat. I didn't just wake up one day and go outside and find the first cat that I could find that was a stray and bring him into this house. I did not do that, okay? The first thing I had to do was have a talk with who is now going to be 19-year-old cat, Cody, who is an old man, who's set in his ways, who's a very sweet cat, but he's old. And I had to talk to him. And we've had many talks over Cody's life, right? He's been around half my life. And we've had a lot of talks, him and I, but I had to talk to him about what we need and what he needed and what I needed. And as his caretaker, I have to provide what he needs. And so I don't care if he can talk back, right? I needed to talk to him. I took a cue though from him, even though he can't talk back to me. I took a lot of cues from Cody, like when I would come in from going to work or I'd come in from being somewhere, and he would just be crying and meowing because he was by himself, which Cody has really never been by himself through most of his life. There's only been a small period of time where I only had one cat. Other than that, I've always had two or more. And so there was a period of time for Cody where he was by himself, and I took that cue. And so we had a long conversation about a new cat coming in, and I knew the new cat coming in had to be a young cat, a kitten, who could keep Cody on his toes. He's getting older. I want to keep him fresh. I want to keep him running as long as he possibly can run. And so another thing I had to do before, just bringing Dylan in here was I had to get a brand new cat carrier. You can't bring a cat in here. I mean, I was going to go to a shelter to pick up Dylan. So most shelters require you to They require you to put the cat into a carrier. Well, the last time I had a cat carrier was when I had to put my last cat down, and I left it at the vet and said, just take it. I don't want it anymore, because I couldn't bear to have that carrier with me anymore. So it was time to get a new cat carrier. So you had to do that, right? And then I had to determine, all right, well, if I'm going to bring a new cat in here, what's Cody going to eat, right? He eats adult food, but this is a kitten. Kittens can't eat adult food. They need this. So you have to think about all that, right? And so what would be best for Cody and his diet as he's aging? I had to think about the house and how it was set up for a kitten. Cody doesn't touch anything. Cody's been around for a long time. He just wanders around, does his thing. He doesn't mess with cords, right? He doesn't mess with, the blinds. He doesn't knock glasses over. He doesn't go into plants. He doesn't do any of that stuff. But a new kitten will. So I was very used to a peaceful setting. When you bring a new kitten into the house, it's not as peaceful as it used to be anymore. So I had to think about how was I going to orchestrate the house. And then, I wanted to travel. Well, how am I going to travel if I'm bringing a brand new kitten in here? Luckily, I have friends who are right here next to me who are able to help with that kind of stuff. But it's also very important and critical to understand you have to put all these pieces together before you just take the biggest leap, right? And so all of that stuff, how is it going to be handled? I mean, it was very overwhelming and it took a long time. But here's the thing, step by step, one by one, day by day, I did one thing at a time until the day came when I asked my friend Jess, who I love. She came with me to the shelter. I loved having her with me because she's a really big supporter of the care of animals and keeping animals cared for and happy and that kind of stuff. She's also a really big cheerleader when good things happen to people. And so I wanted her to be there for support. So she came with me. And so that's another step you have to go through. You have to figure out what's her schedule versus mine and how can we go there and pick up a cat. And I didn't look ahead. I wanted to go and just see which cat kind of flowed with me. And so she could come with me. And so that's a lot of organization. So here's the thing. The seeds that you have to plant, the steps that you have to take in order to get what you want require a couple of things. Courage, right? You can't be afraid of everything, because if you're afraid of everything, you're going to just lead a sheltered life. And if you want to lead a sheltered life, go right ahead, but there's no growth in leading a sheltered life. So you're going to remain pretty much mentally the same as you are from the age of 8 or 9 years old until you are on your deathbed. And I don't want to live a life like that. I want to grow and I want to experience more and I want to evolve. And so it's important to understand that you need to plant seeds now to do things like that. That's why I teach about habits and routines, because when you start to put these certain routines in play, then they become habits. And then they become part of your life, like getting up when the alarm goes off, right? I didn't start to do that in early 2022, even way before I even started this podcast. I was the person who would drag my ass out of bed and I'd be angry all the time. And so 2023 was going to be the year that I was not going to do that anymore. And I was going to get up when the alarm went off. You cannot expect to see anything grow without planting the seed. I mean, things don't grow without nurturing. We just know that. So if you don't take the first step to do anything, it's not going to work for you. You must take the first step. You have to do that, not someone else. You need to do that. Someone else can inspire you, but people cannot take those steps for you. So 2023 was going to be the year that I was not going to expect things to happen just by happenstance. I was going to take control. I was going to do that more than I did the year before. Get off the couch. You had to get out of your comfort zone. I had to do those things, which means, and when you get out of your comfort zone, guess where else that means you have to get off? Your phone, because your phone isn't going to get you anywhere. It's just not. So one thing a day that I had to do that was going to push me closer to my dreams, that is the mindset that I had to live in 2023. And I invite you to start thinking about that as you go into 2024. You see, this is the difference between New Year's resolutions and just making a bunch of changes because it's January 1. New Year's resolution, by definition, is kind of something that you're going to do or you're not going to do anymore. So I'm going to start doing this now, and that's it. That's my resolution. Or I'm just not going to do this anymore, and that's my resolution. Well, here's the thing. This is why most New Year's resolutions never, ever make it past the end of the month. Because when you try to do things cold turkey, and for some things it might work cold turkey. Some things have worked for me cold turkey. I'm not saying on January 1 I did them, but in my life I've stopped things completely. But a lot of times cold turkey does not work. So if you try to quit smoking on January 1st, just cold turkey, or you stop drinking alcohol and you're like, all right, that's it. I'm doing dry January and I'm not going to drink anymore. And then the first triggers start and you're like, oh my gosh. And you get back into your habit and away, there goes that resolution. Why not, instead of going cold turkey on things, why not take it one step at a time? Maybe you go from having 4 drinks a day to 2 drinks a day or 3 drinks a day. And then after a week or 2, you go down to 2 drinks a day or 1 drink a day, whatever it is. And you can take any example, but you don't have to make it a resolution. All you're doing is making a change for your future self. That's what's important. That's the key. That's the key to making everything you want, all your dreams come true. If you have certain things in mind for yourself, you have to make the change now, step by step by step. You see, when you wind up looking back at your year and you're like, well, I hope 2024 is a better year than 2023. Well, the only thing that's going to make 2024 better is you, not circumstances beyond your control. You. There are going to be circumstances beyond your control that are going to lead to struggles. Maybe you have more struggles one year over another, but no year is ever wasted. Because even in struggles, you're still learning and you're still growing and you are still working to become the person that you want to become, step by step, by day by day. So, to become a happier, more fulfilled person, it's not going to happen on January 2nd. It's going to be measured in progress, not completion. I'm going to repeat that. Progress, not completion. Okay? Progress is a huge deal. So in yoga, we begin again and again and again and again. And that's what progress is. You just begin again and again. And so I'm going to leave you with these final thoughts. Number one, if you feel like you didn't accomplish anything in 2023, I'm going to challenge you to think again. I already said that once, but I'm going to say it again. Because you just listened to this episode or watched this episode all the way through to this point, and you're still listening. That is progress. So you did do something in 2023. You listened to a podcast and got to this point. That's progress. You are taking your time, which is valuable, to listen. Who cares what you did or didn't get done? It's time to begin again, and you're making progress by listening to this episode. Number two, my second thought for you. No one is saying that you have to make a big list and put time constrictions on when you can get the list done. If it doesn't happen in 2024, you still will have made progress, right? Still would have made progress. I could do a whole another episode on all of the things I wanted to have happen in 2024 that never got off the ground, or I started to take steps and I started to meet a lot of resistance and they had to be shelved or changed or fine-tuned or thrown out altogether. I could do a whole other episode on that, but we're not going to dwell on those things because those things still were part of progress. And so I didn't fail at any of them, or it's not like I didn't get them done, quote unquote. All that mattered is I was making progress. And number three, finally, I'm going to say it one more time. Get your ass moving to create something for yourself one day at a time. And guess what else get your ass moving means? It doesn't always mean that you're moving, like physically moving and you're like running these marathons. When you get moving, you understand there's a balance in your life between progress, moving forward, and also resting. You see, life to me is like this big like road that you're walking down. You're on the road and you're walking. I see like, when I think about life, I see, it almost makes me think of the game of life. Do you remember the game of life? Those of you that played, you spin the wheel in the middle and you have to go around the board. Well, I picture myself like on that board. I don't see squares. I just see a path and I see trees. And as you're walking along this path, there are going to be things that are going to jump out at you. There's going to be weather that's going to come and it's going to stop you dead in your tracks as you're trying to move forward. The key is not to say, okay, just pick yourself up and get back going. To me, that's toxic positivity. Just to, when you're down, to say, no, just get back up and start all over again. That's not progress to me. Progress is you feel yourself hit the ground. You feel yourself stop in your tracks and you stop. You literally stop and you rest and you take time to balance yourself. That is also what I mean by get your ass moving. Too much rest is too much rest. Too much action is too much action. Too much is too much. But the balance in yoga, that's the yin and the yang. You have action and you have rest. So in yoga, you may have seen the yin yang symbol, and it's got a little white dot and a little black dot on each side because you need a little in each one. And that's how you move on your on your path of progress on that board, the game of life. One step at a time, but you have to be the one to take the action. And you have to do that now. It doesn't matter if it's 2023 still. You still have to take the action. So I want you to stop thinking about who you want to become and start being the person that you want to become by your actions, by your habits, by the way you treat people, by your acts of kindness, by your purpose, and stop focusing on the things that don't matter, like what everybody else is doing or getting involved in everybody else's business. If you are someone who's getting involved in everybody else's business and you are trying to be everybody's friend around you, we talked about this in the, not everybody at work is your coworker. If you're trying to be everybody's friend, here's what's happening. You're going outward. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be friendly to people. We know this. All human beings you can be friendly with. It doesn't mean that you have to have a deep personal connection to every single person, because when you pour all that out, you've got nothing left inside. You need the balance for yourself, okay? The love for yourself is where you can become one with others, not automatically going outward to everyone. That's not love, that's nosiness, all right? So we focus on inward behavior, not outward behavior, because the behavior that you do outwardly comes from within. It's all in your hands. You can make that happen. When you look back at 2023 and you look ahead at 2024 with purpose, you can make anything you want to happen. I am wishing you a safe and a happy holiday season. I'm wishing you a blessed and prosperous new year. And I cannot wait to see you all in 2024, where we will begin season 3 of this podcast. Details on all of that will be announced through my social media. And if you are on the newsletter, if you're not, you can sign up. It's in the link, the link is in the description of the episode that you're listening to or watching. I send out newsletter every week, no matter whether there's new episodes or not airing. So if you want, and I also will be posting things on my social media and through YouTube on the shorts. So you're not going to lose touch, but the new episodes start in January, probably late January. And until then, again, I'm wishing you a lot of love, a lot of peace, a lot of happiness. You deserve that. Happy New Year, everybody, and I'll see you in 2024.